People are worried that their data is going to be taken away. And my view on that is, let's change the narrative on that. If you are so concerned about it, then we need you, because you're thinking right. You can really help the organization, to identify those gaps, those privacy leaks.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Byte. My name is Mo Hafez, and today we are diving into a topic that is necessary, and in today's day and age, it is very important that we explore not just what the capabilities of the technology is, but also how to properly guide it. And we are happy today to have Padmini Soni, who is the head of responsible AI at the AI Leadership Institute, and she's also the founder and CEO of Rezonance AI with us. Padmini, welcome to Beyond the Byte.
Thank you so much, Mo. I'm so happy to be here.
We're glad to have you here. So you are the head of responsible AI. We're talking about the importance of ethical AI in adopting AI responsibly.
Right.
Tell me, how did you get into that field? Why did you get into that field?
So just to give you a little bit of a background about myself, I've been in the tech space for over 25 years, and I got into AI about 5-6 years back, where I'm passionate about data, passionate about how data is used for, prediction, how data is destiny. And I took up this, a year-long course at MIT, and I was, COVID hit, and all of us, sort of got into our little nest.
Bubbles.
And bubbles. And so at around that time, because of COVID, my parents, who lived back in India, I brought them here, and my dad and mom were here with me. And in November, I remember the date, November 26, 2022, my dad had a nasty fall. And which eventually led to his passing. But
I'm so sorry for your loss.
No, thank you. So I went from overnight from being like just with a one full-time job to two full-time jobs, like my regular job and taking care of him. Overnight, it was like, instead of stressing about just meetings, I started stressing about, his health and medication and taking care of a loved one. But 4 days after that, something else happened, November 30, 2022, ChatGPT was born. It was introduced to the world. Yeah. And initially, just because of my interest in data, I sort of started dabbling with it more from trying to understand, because first it was like a cool tool. It was, everybody was testing it, trying to see what it says. It was generative and it was amazing. And I started using it to sort of answer his questions about medication, about, managing my chaotic life. I was like, give me a schedule of how to do this, this, and the other. And initially it was great. And I was like, I love this. But then I started seeing some inconsistencies, he would ask me questions about medication, and I was like, let me check ChatGPT. And then, of course, I would back check,
Trust but verify.
Exactly. Trust and verify. And I started noticing some inconsistencies. And I have come from this world, so I knew that, these models are trained on large volumes of data, this generative.
And that they're statistical, right?
Yes, they're probabilistic.
They're probabilistic, not deterministic.
Exactly. So when I started doing that, I started noticing these discrepancies, and then I was like, that doesn't look right. I should back check that, and it was wrong. And I was like, So when that started happening, my background helped me, but I was thinking of like the layperson who
everybody else who doesn't know any better.
And I was like, this may be technology, but it impacts humans deeply, because we look at it, we read it, and we just somehow, the way it says the way that comes, it seems
full confidence.
Full confidence. So I was like, I have to, sort of make sure that I use this technology responsibly, and also ensure that others who don't know about this understand. Well. So that was my foray into responsible AIs. It was more of like, not only as a technologist, but, as a daughter, as a citizen, as a user. So
as a human.
As a human.
As a human who
Yeah.
recognized that this thing has some great potentials, that helped you out,
Yes.
but that it also has the potential to make mistakes, and not everybody understands that.
Exactly. And when I always say that when AI fails, it doesn't fail in isolation; it fails in society. So so yes, I was like, this is my calling. I have to, yeah. So that's how.
Well, it's your position and your background really helped you transition into that role, and what a boon it is for the industry to have somebody like you that is asking the right questions, that sees the power of this technology, but also understands the risks and is looking at risk mitigation right off the bat.
For sure.
And for the viewers who may have used ChatGPT, may not have used ChatGPT, there is, and with any generative LLM these days, large language model, you have the little disclaimer on the bottom that says, hey, these are not necessarily facts. But the problem is that AI is 70 years old. I mean, this is a science from 1950s.
Yes.
But its original design was to mimic human intelligence. And it has gotten so good at mimicking human intelligence that it has gotten people to say, well, it talks very convincingly.
Oh my God.
And it doesn't know how to say, I don't know.
Exactly. It's like, you almost feel like, oh my God, this is my long lost friend. It knows me, it understands me more than anyone else. And what ChatGPT does, when it says, that's a great idea, when you say something, even something very stupid.
It's your hype man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yes. You're gonna rock.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, so it's. I think there's a term for it, psychophancy bias or sycophancy bias. That's a term for it, where it's always saying that you're right. And there's a danger to that, because you can say whatever you want to, and it supports you. You can say, can you teach me how to make stone soup? And it'll tell you exactly how to do that. So, so it's, you have to always look at it. And we talk about prompt engineering, where how you prompt the AI. There are plenty frameworks on how you prompt AI. But there's also, we should also have a framework for what the AI gives us. We have to, it's the other way too, that, when the AI is responding to us, we have to have a framework around that response to understand what it's saying. Is it trustworthy? Is it verifiable? Is it reliable? Is there bias in it? So it can be in whether it's a text response or an image response, what have you. You have to have some sort of a framework around it to make sure that, you verify what it says.
100%. And that is easier said than done.
Definitely.
And this is the issue that a lot of organizations, users are running into now, is they know the tech is powerful. They know that it's transformative, and there's the adoption curve. We're on the adoption curve. Businesses are of course a little bit slower to adopt for obvious reasons, but it's happening. The transformation is happening. However, there is this hurdle of responsible adoption. I want to explore that with you.
And I wouldn't frame it as a hurdle. I would frame it as almost an enabler that is sort of helping you not fail down the line. Because there was this round table that I was chairing, and also a panel in Chicago, middle of June, last month. And the question was, is AI governance the missing link between innovation and trust? So, and it is the missing link. I mean, if anyone wants to know the answer, it is.
The answer is yes.
Yeah,
it
the
is
answer
the missing link.
the missing link. So it is basically guardrails that you put in place so that when you are going breakneck speed into using AI or progressing in your company or your teams in adopting AI, you have the frameworks and the governance frameworks in place which help you to take the right steps now so that you don't fail later. Because if you don't have that framework right now, if you don't look at how you're collecting data, if you don't look at privacy and security, the risk of failing
is higher and higher.
Higher and higher.
Yeah.
And I think larger organizations, because there's that reputation risk, they want to make sure that, they have these frameworks in place and they talk about it and all that. But I'm talking even of small businesses, medium-sized businesses.
Yeah.
We absolutely have to consider a responsible AI framework. There are multiple. You have the NIST framework. You have
there's over 200. Well, actually
God.
more, a lot more. The problem is there's too many frameworks.
There are too many frameworks, but pick one. Most of them pick one.
You have to at least have one.
Right.
This idea, and I love how you mentioned that there's a saying I remember that I've always used. It's fail to plan, plan to fail.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is more important than ever when it comes to AI because of the fact that it involves a lot of aspects, chiefly the aspect of data and knowing what to do with data, knowing what not to do with data. And this all goes as part of this idea of a strategy, of an AI strategy, of a tech strategy, so that adoption is not just a half-baked measure where you bring in the tool and you say, okay, we'll figure it out as we go along.
Right. It's not a checkbox.
It's not a checkbox. It's absolutely not a checkbox.
Yeah.
So organizations are really right now need to be considering what their AI strategy is going to be.
Yes.
How have you seen leaders and CEOs and organizations hesitant with this adoption because of the fact that they recognize that there's this big problem, a big question, if you will, of how are we going to build this into our systems?
So I think I don't know whether we'd call it pressure. There is. CEOs and the C-suite want to now. Everyone's talking about AI. It's the new shiny tool. Everybody wants AI in their organizations. So if the push comes from the top, we do need alignment with the C-suite. But if the push comes from the top, then the middle managers are then pushing it down to the engineers, and we have to ensure that we create the right environment for our teams, whether it is in the form of upskilling. I always talk about this T-shaped skill set, because you want to have this basic level of AI literacy across the organization.
Perfect, exactly.
And then you pick the ones where you want to go deep, and that's the vertical leg of the T, where you are like, okay, maybe as a data scientist, I want to understand more about,
machine learning algorithms, predictive AI,
exactly, all of that. So, but then, or if I'm an AI ethicist, I will look at the frameworks that I have to deal with,
and the governance, and how people are using it.
Exactly. So, and how everything around like data privacy, data in transit, data at rest, everything. So, but there has to be this basic level of AI literacy, and one of the main things about to me, every AI journey starts with AI literacy. You absolutely have to have that, So what happens is in our adoption cycle, we find that one is the skill gap, this fear of inadequacy. Oh, I don't know, maybe I'm not a technologist, so I don't think I should. Yeah. Technology and AI, yes. The machine learning is the technology part of it, but nowadays you have these no-code, low-code tools, and AI is a human at the center. So you don't have to be a technologist. You don't have to be a PhD to do that. So it's the skill gap which is a barrier. Then we have this fear of job loss, where people are like, if AI comes in, it'll take away my job. I don't know. I don't want it in here. Maybe it's, the old ways in a good way. And so there's that fear of job loss. Then privacy. People are worried that their data is going to be taken away. And my view on that is, let's change the narrative on that. If you are so concerned about it, then we need you, because you're thinking right. You can really help the organization, to identify those gaps, those privacy leaks.
Yeah.
So you have to come in. We need you to be that person, that spokesperson, And then there are the people who are like, oh, I already have AI. I know it. I use ChatGPT.
I'm an AI.
Yeah. So they are coming in their own way, you know.
They're in the Dunning-Kruger phase.
Yeah, exactly. So it is. So all these different aspects of, the adoption cycle, it's interesting. You know?
And the common denominator here, I think, is, and you said it beautifully, was this idea of a base AI literacy,
Yes.
right? The T, you know, the T, where you have to make sure, as an organization, you want everybody to be on the same page. I actually just finished a workshop for AI literacy, this cohort where they went through, and this idea of you need to understand, you all need to have a common understanding of AI literacy so that you can build upon that bedrock, that foundation. How are the efforts to promote AI literacy? Do you see it right now as being still an organizational problem, an organizational responsibility for organizations to train their people, or do you see people now have a responsibility to train themselves?
I think it's both. It's not either or. Yes, we need communication within the organization about what is expected. There has to be sort of guidelines on what are the tools that as this particular organization needs. It may be different for manufacturing, but yes, there is that base level understanding of what AI can or cannot do. We have to understand that. So, but at the same time, I think we cannot always have the responsibility on somebody else. We have to take responsibility to upskill our own selves.
Yes.
I think it is critical because life is all about learning. So this is a transformative technology. It's here to stay. So I would say that yes, your organizations, your team leads may have a certain guidelines or a training program, but put in your effort. It's part of your, education, exposure, experience, So look at the education part of it and you do your bit to sort of, self-train and self-learn.
And we have to foster that curiosity, either within ourselves or as leaders, as parents. We need to help foster that curiosity. Now, for adults, I think that curiosity is healthy. I think there's an aspect of we want everybody to be curious, to tinker, to play with it, and learn the ins and outs, and not fear it, definitely respect it, and figure out how to adopt it. But we talk about curiosity as being something that is great for adults. It's also great for children. But we want to foster that curiosity with children and STEM education. But the flip side of that coin is being worried about cognitive debt. It's being worried about having that technology, which is very, very powerful, create a little bit of a critical thinking decline. So going towards education, as I mentioned, this is why I started the question with, as adults, I think it's great. When we talk about younger people, how do you feel about AI literacy for younger people? What age is too young?
I think it's critical for younger people, for kids to learn AI because they're going to use it in any case. So it's better that we put structure around it so that they use it. I mean, if I have to pick a number, I would probably say 10. But I mean, that is just, off the top of my head.
That's not a bad number.
Yeah. So I think you are at that age where you're able to follow instructions, to a certain level. You understand,
how to think for yourself.
Think for yourself, and you're at that start of that journey. In fact, my friend Yuvika and I, we created the summer program for middle schoolers.
Really?
Yeah. So we have kids as young as 11. So I think ChatGPT says 13 and above should be using it or something like that. There is this age.
They actually have an age recommendation.
So, but we did get consent from their parents, with written consent. We were like, okay, are you willing? Because your children are already using it, you know. So it's I think it has been successful. We are still in the middle of it. But
in what way, though, Padmini? In what way is successful in terms of...
So I know MIT did this study, with about, how AI is causing, sort of the ability to critically think, sort of.
Yeah, it's a recent study.
Exactly, recent study.
Yeah.
But just to give some clarity, there were 54 students in that study, and they were about, I think it was about 4 months long. They had 3 groups that, they split the group of 54 into 3 parts. One that used AI, one that used simple search, and one that did not use any of the tools and just used their brains. But then there was... and I don't know the details of the study, but I think one of the things was when they were asked to, they had 4 steps in that study. And the people who were not using AI, when they were in the final step, they were asked to use AI, and it was flipped for the others.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That's right.
Yeah. So what happens is there is this familiarization effect when you're using your own brain and you're reading something and you're studying something. You sort of repeatedly read it, see it, and it's in your brain. When you go to AI to use it, yes, it'll help. And for the others, they were looking at that text for the first time, so there was a little bit of that effect playing in a part. So while yes, AI can hamper your critical thinking, I think the whole definition of critical thinking is going to change. If critical thinking is what we call writing an essay and how you write an essay, that may no longer be called critical thinking. It may be that you sort of question what is written. When your essays, AI writes it for you, you debate it, or you say, help me identify, you question it. So that may become the new...
Critical thinking is knowing what question to ask.
Right. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to... I think we're on the exact same page here, where it's just this idea of, if you're, it's knowing what question to ask, knowing how to prompt,
right,
and knowing, and ultimately, as humans using this tech, asking the right questions for how we use the tech.
Right.
I worry a little bit about this idea of cognitive debt, because and so many of my, some of the minds of our times that I appreciate have talked about how, like Robert Greene, one of them, who's a famous author, he talked about how the struggle of writing a book and writing is part of the product that's being delivered, right? The book is not just an idea; it is a struggle. Like the writer, putting their thoughts down on paper is a very interactive exercise. And if we instead go from idea to product without that effort going into it, that it does take a little bit away from us, from the engagement that we would have had.
I completely agree with that. Yes, it would take it away. But I think what's going to happen is, while this tool is still fairly new, a lot of people are rushing to just prompt it and get an answer and spit it out. The ones who will succeed are the ones who will be doing that due diligence of, putting their thoughts down and then prompting it correctly, asking the right questions, understanding how to use it. So I think it will slowly sort of itself evolve into such a space where the person who's just going to prompt, copy, paste is not going to be doing well, and they're going to know that they'll have to change their ways.
Yeah, so. And that's inevitable. It's happening for the sake of progress and for our ability to continue to progress humanity.
Yes.
And so, do you see this turning into a bit of a transhuman movement where you've got man and human and machine?
Yes. I mean, with Agentic AI, I think we're going to have organizations where we have agents being part of your org structure. That's what we hear. Yeah. So So I think, like, when we talk about AI, responsible AI, we have to talk about how we build these systems start and end with the human in mind, right? So
the human in the loop concept.
Yeah, human in the loop concept, human in the loop, human on the loop. You have all these. So Microsoft, in fact, has this amazing tool called the HAX Toolkit, and it's the Human AI Experience Toolkit. And it has got about 18 guidelines in it. So, and these guidelines are spread across 4 phases. So you have, initially, when you just start thinking about the AI system, then you have during interaction. So once you've built the system and, when you're interacting with it, when something goes wrong, It's not if something goes wrong.
When
something goes
you
wrong.
plan for it to go wrong. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, you know, because it's probabilistic, it's adapting, it's changing over time. And then finally, the last phase is over time. So the very first phase, which is initially, it has got two guidelines, which are so critical. It's the human should know what the AI can do and what it cannot do. Because I think adapting and adopting AI, one of the critical things is to understand its limitations too. Because we as humans, I mean, when ChatGPT first gave us a response in like generative text, we were blown away by it. And now we are like, it can't even do this much. I mean, I asked it. So we've
already picked up on where its where its capabilities are.
Right. So I think we start expecting a lot more too fast, and if we don't know the limitations, that leads to frustration. Then that leads to a lack of adoption. So I think it's very important to any AI system that you build, you have to have your user understand what it can and what it cannot do. So, and it's beautifully laid out in that HAX Toolkit, and I would urge all your listeners to definitely take a look at the Microsoft HAX Toolkit.
The HAX Toolkit.
HAX, Human AI Experience. Experience. Yeah. It's a great toolkit, and it has a workbook, a playbook. You start designing your system, and it will tell you all the failure modes where what you have to look at. I think it's a good tool to have.
And we're going to need tools like this more and more, especially when we talk about adopting AI in a responsible way. And I'm glad that there are these guidelines out there. And you mentioned, Padmini, that there are so many frameworks now to navigate, but the key is to adopt one.
Right.
Yeah.
So because most of your frameworks, they will talk about fairness, bias, privacy, safety, security, accountability, reliability, sustainability. So and if you just sit down and give it some thought, it is important. I mean, as a layperson, when you think of all this, it makes sense that yes, all these frameworks talk about the same things, and so adopt one, and just go with it, so that at least you have like this governance around your system, and you know what to use, and you know how to build, and you know who has to be at the table, because we always say, build for people with people.
I like that. For people with people.
You don't build here and say, go now. You can test it and you can do it. You don't want to do that. So
And I'm actually pointing this out because as somebody who's in the responsible AI space, you of course, and you mentioned it at the very beginning, you understand the importance of adopting a framework before you adopt the technology itself. With my clients, we built a framework. We call it the CLEAR framework.
Okay.
And it's for AI adoption, and it has all those principles built in.
Wonderful.
But I'm understandably, I know that it's one framework out of hundreds.
Yes.
Are there any frameworks out there, and I'm not, you haven't seen the CLEAR framework, but are there any frameworks out there that kind of like the Microsoft one you just recommended that you would recommend for organizations to look into?
So the NIST framework, that's a good framework. I like the Microsoft Responsible AI framework, So, and depending on where you are, if you're like in the EU AI Act, I guess it has its own set of,
European.
So European. Singapore has, its own. So I think across the globe, you have
your choices.
Yeah, you have your choices, and this is AI, while we're here in the U.S., we're talking about it here. Globally also, I mean, countries are creating their own frontier models. I mean, of course, we know DeepSeek.
Yes. Although that's not even China's frontier model, but Sweden, I believe, just is coming out with their own model, like their own. It's like a government, and I hope I'm not wrong on this fact, actually, but I believe I just read about this.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But yes, countries are adopting their own, essentially LLMs, right? Their own models.
Yeah. So because I think what happens is these LLMs have been trained on data from the internet, right? So the existing biases will definitely seep in, and then we have to make these models also culturally relevant.
Yeah, I like
so,
that.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
so when you build a model, say in India, it'll have the cultural context of India, and if you build it in Africa, it'll have the cultural context of Africa.
Yeah.
So I think it becomes while there are so many models, everybody is sort of, we know of the ChatGPTs and the DeepSeeks and the, whatever llamas of the world, but there are so many other models. In fact, just this morning we were at an event at Microsoft. We're talking about the Azure AI Foundry.
Yes.
And within that foundry, within Azure, when you look at the models, and these are all kinds of models, reasoning models, chat models, models for biology and models. 11,097 models are there in that. So this is a growing space that it's not capping anytime soon. So
yeah, and you your curiosity into that space is what brought you to it, and that's actually, I think, the really important aspect here is being curious, asking the right questions. Padmini, it's wonderful to have you on the podcast. It's wonderful to have you in this industry.
Oh, thank you so much.
We need more and more people like you who are asking the right questions, who are helping companies adopt AI responsibly. And I really appreciate you sharing your insight with us on Beyond the Byte.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that this worked out, and we could do this in person.
100%. And there's so much more we can explore.
Definitely.
I wish we had the time, but it's just been so lovely to have you.
Likewise, lovely to be here. Thank you.
And check out Rezonance AI and the AI Leadership Institute.
Yes, and the Asian Women Advancing AI. Yes, that's a community, online community for Asian women in AI. And we have a vision of making it the global community for Asian women in AI. So definitely check us out.
Excellent. I will, and I will connect you with some people as well, actually, that I think would be very, very interested in
Thank you so
enjoying,
much. I appreciate it.
And I will check it out.
Yeah, my friend Yuvika and I, we started it together, so we're co-founders.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. I hope this episode sparked some questions for you, sparked your curiosity as well to explore the space, to tinker with it, but also to make sure you're asking the right questions and thinking ethically. So as always, stay curious, stay ethical, stay human, and thank you for joining us on Beyond the Byte.